Okay, so hello and welcome back. Now in this video what we will do is essentially doing subtraction on the number line. Now on the number line, essentially doing subtraction is, well, much less complicated than it was on the Ginlari. And basically, for example, let's say that you want to do 19 minus 15, for example. So you can just simply very easily go to 19 and then essentially you need to come back basically 15 steps. That's 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 and 15, and you will end up with a 4, and then 4, the same, essentially the 4 itself is the answer. So that's essentially 19 minus 15 is essentially a 4. Now of course you can do it in a different way, meaning that instead of counting essentially 15 steps, you can count in steps of 10, for example, if you have to. For example, in 19 minus 15, you can do it exactly as you can come directly to 19 and then basically go back 15 steps. But then the 15 steps, you can first go back basically 10 steps. From 19, when you go back 10 steps, you'd end up with a 9, and then you can go back basically 5 steps, meaning that then 1 2 3 4 and 5, and then you will end up with a 4, and then 19 minus 15 is equal to 4. Now if you want to, now let's do a couple of practices on these examples. Now this is essentially 26, which is the number that we started from here. 26 minus, and then you need to see essentially how many steps you're coming back. So that's 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15. 26 minus 15 is equal to 11. 26 and then 15 steps back, so minus 15 is equal to 11, which is the number that you end up with, right? And of course over here I could have counted a little bit more easily, meaning that 26 and then the number of steps back. So you see over here, from 26, if I go back essentially 10 steps, that's I'll end up at 16, and then 11 12 13 14 and 15. So I can go back essentially 10 steps, and I can go back 10 steps, and then basically and then I will end up with an 11, right? Or for example a 39, which is right over here, and then I want to so a 39 is right over here, and then I want to go back, basically I go back 28 steps. So 39 minus 10 is 29. 29 minus 10 is 19, so that's 20 steps, and I need to go back 10 more steps. So I can go essentially, 8 more steps. So I can go 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and I'll end up at 11, and I'll write 11 over here. But I can still make it easier, meaning that essentially 39 is over here, and 28 steps is very close to basically 30 steps. So I go back 30 steps, and then I come forward 2 steps. That's the same as going back 28 steps. So from 39, 10 steps would be 29. From 29, 10 steps would be 19. From 19, 10 steps would be 9. So I'll end up at 9. And then I come back 2 steps. So 9, 10, and 11. So again, I will end up at 11. And so then 39 minus 28 is 11. Right? Again, over here, for example, as you can see, we start with basically with 40. So I write the 40 over here, 40 minus. And then I come back 1, 2, and 3 steps of 10. So that's a 31. So then 40 minus 31 is equal to a 9 basically, which is essentially the number that we end up with here. Or for example, over here you can see that 38, which is the number over here, minus an 11. So I go back 10 steps plus 1 step and I'll end up at 27. So that's a 27. And these basically we can do on our own sheet basically. Okay, so now let's take care of, for example, this calculation, 38 minus 11, which is already done here. So I'm going to go to the next one, which is 22 minus 22, right? So at 22 minus 22, so it's easy on the number line, meaning that you don't have to count much because essentially the numbers have been already written here. So 21 is right over here. Excuse me. 22 is right over here. And you want to go back 22 steps. So essentially a 22 is the same thing as a 20 plus a 2, right? Which is the same thing as a 10 plus a 10 plus a 2. So I can go back basically at 10 steps and another 10 steps and 2 steps. So 10 steps from 22 would be essentially 22 minus 10 is 12. So I go to 12 over here. And then from 12 I go back 10 steps. So 12 minus 10 is 2. So I'll end up at 2 basically. So then that means that essentially this is 10 steps and this is 10 steps. And then this number line starts at a 1. And of course you know that 22 minus 22 is a 0, right? So we need to add essentially the number 0 over here, and then I go back another 1 and 2 steps, and I will end up at 0. So 22 minus 22 is equal to 0. Now if I want to calculate, for example, 14 minus 0. If I want to calculate 14 minus 0. So you know that 14 minus 0 is of course is equal to 14, because you start at 14 and then you have to go back 0 steps, meaning that you remain essentially at 14. So 14 minus 0 is equal to 14, right? Now suppose that I want to do 35 minus 12, which I cannot do on this number line because it goes only all the way up to just 30. So I draw a number line over here, and I put a 1 over here, and let's say that this is a 10, and this is another 10, and this is another 10, and this is another 10. Excuse me, what I mean to say is that this is essentially a 10, and a 20, a 30, and a 40, right? So a 35 would be right over here. That's a 35, and that's where you start. And you want to go back essentially 12 steps. So I will start at 35, and I want to go back 12 steps. So I will go back 10 steps and then another 2 steps. Going back from 35, 10 steps, I will end up at 25, right? So that's essentially over here, that's 10 steps. And then another 2 steps would be essentially basically 24 and 23. So let's call this 23. And then I go back 2 more steps, and then I will essentially end up at 23, which means that 35 minus 12 is the same thing as basically 23. Now another one of these is now it seems that we have run out of these examples. So that's essentially it for the number line for now, but we will of course do more examples with the number line in the future videos. Thank you.